Sound Words here at 91.7 KIBH FM Seward and on our YouTube station at Sacktown Talk on the live tab. It is a beautiful day in Seward, and I'm so happy to have as our guest here sitting next to me, Rosie Frankowski. Rosie,
Hello.
how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's sunny. It's beautiful outside. I think it's the first time I've seen the sun in a month, so
it's nice.
Can't complain.
It's nice. Rosie, down from Anchorage, our second guest in a row from Anchorage, which I think is really fun for the show. So appreciate you making the trip.
Thank you.
Excited to get into a conversation and hear you read today, which we'll get started soon. Rosie and I met very recently through a trail mix journal project that Kenai Mountain Turning an Arm National Heritage Area is putting on that I'm helping with. Really exciting project. I'm excited about, really fun. What it is people, writers, hikers, runners, writing about trails that they connect with, that mean something to them, picking a trail and writing about it however they want to write about it. We're going for like just a variety of structures, essay stories, creativity, however you want to kind of honor this trail or share your experience with it. So Rosie's piece is the current one published right now. It went up last week. She wrote about Res Pass, and it's an awesome story, and it was really fun reading it and going through drafts. Their first draft was awesome, but I really had fun, emailing back and forth. I think we got to get to know each other a little bit, emailing, and it really came together fast, which was fun. It's nice when you get an email back, right away. But I think we all...
Right, likewise, yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really fun, but we're just meeting today, which is great. I'm going to read Rosie's bio that is listed on the website under her piece. And, if you're interested in participating in the Trail Mix Journal, we are looking for contributors. So just check out the KMTA website, look for the Trail Mix Journal tab, and you can read all about it and how to get started, how to get in touch. So Rosie Frankowski, a spirited ball of energy. Rosie has embraced Alaska as her home for now since 2014. Originally from Minnesota, Rosie came to Alaska on a whim to cross-country ski race for APU Nordic Ski Center and raced in the 2018 Olympics and in the World Cup for 4 seasons. In 2022, she stepped away from competitive skiing racing amidst an earthquake of change in her personal life and found herself on a year-long journey through the Western United States and eventually South America. She continues to explore Alaska's trails and also enjoys teaching yoga, foraging, rollerblading, eating Thai food, and painting. Rosie Frankowski, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor, honestly. So I think I'm going to jump into reading my piece on Res Pass. So I'm going to jump in, and I think we're going to split it up into a couple pieces, but here we go. So first I want to acknowledge the Knightley Indian tribe descendants of the Dena'ina as the rightful stewards of the land encompassing Res Pass. I honor their ancestral connection and ongoing presence in this territory. This past July, I decided to run the entirety of Resurrection Pass in one day, from Cooper Landing to Hope. Since I became interested in point-to-point runs in the Alaskan mountains, Resurrection Pass stood out as the pinnacle of long trails in south-central Alaska. Once used as a popular mining corridor, the 38-mile mountainous trail is now predominantly used for recreation, and compared with a recent trip to McCarthy, I saw no signs of the old mining days. Outside of the iconic wilderness of the trail, the question arises, why would one decide to run 38 miles in one day? In July 2022, a sudden undesired change upended my life. It turned my world upside down and my mind and heart inside out. Earlier that spring, I had finally stepped away from a high-level cross-country ski racing career. For almost 3 years, I had tried to quit skiing. The pandemic thwarted my first attempt in 2020, and personal fear and anxiety over the loss of identity and societal validation, as well as the glimmer of a potential spot on a second Olympic team, kept me chasing a dream that, in retrospect, wasn't my dream. In 2022, while I unsteadily navigated the challenging transition away from a skiing career and the life of a competitive athlete that had defined my last 15 years, the plans for the rest of my life were taking root. A cross-country move, new job, and big travel plans on the horizons, all with my person next to me. All of those plans vanished when my partner unexpectedly decided he wanted a different future. As my life exploded, so did my mind. with the huge privilege of time and space to absorb and mourn my loss, I found myself adrift in a turbulent sea of grief and panic. I lost sight of the narrative that had once guided me, a narrative that wove together exploration, adventure, and a life and possible future family with my partner, my foundation for the last 7 years. Friends and family came to my side, but I had never known this type of darkness and profound despondency. Immediately, all my plans, hopes, and dreams for my life vanished. As a type A human who previously pursued achievement after achievement, I had no structure on how to move forward. My partner and I had dreamt up our lives together. I had no solo backup plan and no desire for a different life. Immediately, within weeks of the acute mental breakdown, I tried to attack back with a regime of therapy, medications, yoga, and all the self-care ideas I could find. A yes and paradigm ran through my days. I clung to hope in order to survive and simultaneously felt delusional, confused, and dejected. My body itself seemed to revolt. I lost all interest in food due to constant nausea, and the ability to sleep vanished. Whenever I ran or hiked, I would end up flat on my face, my sense of balance gone. The black hole sucked me in deeper and deeper. Regardless of all of my attempts to fix myself, depression and anxiety have no immediate cure, and grief has no timeline. I found myself in the lower 48, living out of a car by choice, falling deeper and deeper into severe depression and anxiety. Grief guided my actions from impulsive, dangerous decisions to days spent non-functional. I teetered between moods of total disregard for my life, like attempting to climb and then falling off a 25-foot cliff alone in the wilderness of Mount Hood on my 31st birthday, to struggling to get out of bed in the morning after another night of no sleep. Both types of being reflected my utter lack of desire to find out what life would look like now. The one steady thing I had in my life was nature. I often slept at trailheads and on Forest Service roads, finding trails to run or hike before my daily drive, or the hours I spent working remotely at libraries and cafes all over the small towns of the West. Sometimes these runs consisted of me walking along sobbing uncontrollably, whereas other times I found a moment of peace when I plunged into a beautiful alpine lake in the Tetons, or a ray of sunshine illuminated the lush Oregon forest. Nature reminded me of the inevitable death and re-life cycle as I watched late summer in the Pacific Northwest shift to autumn in Wyoming and Utah. And in November, I felt winter take hold during a stint in Girdwood, Alaska. In December, when I lived in New Mexico for a month, on each morning outing, I watched the cacti lay dormant while the desert awaited the return of summer heat. The introspective nature of traveling on trails through vast landscapes filled with life and haunted by remnants of the past mirrored the emotions inside me. The self-reflection and discovery of both good and bad, and all of the complexities in between, echoed in my surroundings. It was in the prickling cactus that scratched my leg as the desert sunrise exploded in the sky. I could also sense it in the prospect of hope that glimmered on the horizon, while the weight of confronting inner demons, grief, panic, and depression loomed anew each day when I woke. Fast forward to July of this year. I had arrived back in Alaska after 3 months of solo travel in South America. The return home was going as smoothly as I expected, which is to say it was a challenge. I had dreamed of feeling how I once felt about Alaska, filled with joy, gratitude, and love for this beautiful place and the good fortune I had to build a life here. But memories of past lives don't really fade, and our somatic bodies know more than our conscious minds can attune to. In late July, a close friend called me to tell me of her plans to camp in Cooper Landing and Hope over the weekend. Immediately, I realized this would be the perfect opportunity to run Resurrection Pass. I've run from Devil's Pass to Cooper Landing twice, and both times were a bit brutal, even though I was in good shape from ski training. As I'm not training anymore, the thought of running 38 miles seemed ridiculous. But after a Friday night Hope Social Club concert at Hilltop, where singer Melissa Mitchell told me to just live your dreams, be wild and free, I impulsively drove down to Devil's Pass Trailhead at 10 p.m. and fell asleep in the back of my car.
Nicely done. This is Seward Sound Words here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward and on Sacktown on our YouTube channel, Sacktown YouTube. Man, nice job. I can't doubt. I mean, I'm so happy to have this piece in the Trail Mix Journal. Like it's up on the website and now on the show, listening to you. I mean, it's a powerful piece. I think listeners, you get that right away. But just to hear you read it, just adds this other measure to it. And you can really read. Like, I mean, that was like poised, like composed, like very writer. Like, I mean,
thank you. I used to teach writing courses.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So I have a lot of practice reading out loud to my students. Maybe.
That was fantastic.
But,
like the nice pace the whole time.
It is weird reading your own writing out loud a little bit more because it's like you can remember all the things you were thinking about when you were writing it and all the like visual memories in your head. So it's almost distracting.
Yeah, stick to the script.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, what about that thing?
Yeah. Way to work through that because I wouldn't know. Yeah. So it's all set up. Here we are. You get a good. I mean, this piece came out so well because I think people are going to really respond to it. It sounds like they already are. I think I related to it a lot. I mean, the one steady thing in my life was nature. I mean, that's such a key line. It's something we're going to talk about here on the show. It's more in the piece. I think that's why I'm in Seward. Like nature is just a way you can go to anytime. When you're feeling great, you could feel even better. You could stay great. When you're not feeling so great, you can go to and do something about what's going on chemically, and just and find something. And what's coming through as I hear it, and I've read this a lot, right? Which has been great. It shows how rich the piece is that I've been through it so much. And I'm finding new things even now listening to you. Is you're working stuff out right now, as we all are. But like we talked a little bit, but there is stuff you found in here, the stuff about depression is you have like some wisdom on I've gotten to this point with it, like I have the knowledge now that, these lines like our somatic bodies, which I think is really cool because, we're all on a process of like learning ourselves, bettering ourselves, being ready for like these things that hit us and how to go through them. And I like that wisdom is coming through. I think it's a very Alaska piece. Like we heard a little bit about your connection to Alaska, which is deep and complex,
Yes.
But, it's kind of Alaskana, like, you go to Hope and Melissa Mitchell gives you this advice, it's just like, that's a really neat moment. And just, Alaska fitting in with some travel to some other really cool places and places you've spent time.
Yeah, I definitely think Alaska has this. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people who are born in Alaska, grew up, and I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people that have come and it's interesting. I mean, in all honesty, if Alaska wasn't pulling me back, I would have left. Like, I mean, there really wasn't a lot, as I've kind of explained in this piece, pulling me here. And yet I found myself over the last year returning. I mean, I'm on my fourth stint now, returning. Yeah. And it's interesting because I do ask myself in my own way, like, why do I return? And then, for example, today I go running on a trail here in Seward in the sun, and it's like the answer's there, and it's like not just there in my mind, it's like there in your body. You just feel it. Yeah. And that's, I don't know how to get that out of my body.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's well put. It is almost, this is why. And there's no words. Like we're going to talk about taking the trail to writing, which you've done, and it's been a really cool thing. But sometimes you don't even have to. It's just like noticing, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I needed, and this is that. Oh yeah. And there's just this relief. There's this ease. And I think is do more of this. More trails.
Exactly.
When it's sunny, notice it. Get out in there. Do 2 runs. Stay out there. Yeah.
Totally. And even I mean, you mentioned. Depending, it doesn't matter if the weather's bad or good. If you can go out, I mean, we've had an awful summer.
Yeah, as we're going to see in this piece.
Yes, exactly. And yet at the same time, you go out for 30 minutes, and it doesn't even need to be running, right? You go out,
anything,
walking. You go sit by a creek, and
walk the dog.
I've never had the experience where I come back feeling worse.
Right.
I mean, sometimes maybe it doesn't work,
right?
But you're not feeling worse. It's always. And even if it hasn't maybe completely shifted your emotional landscape, you still come back with almost a different way of looking at it. You've gotten outside of whatever is pulling you down or pulling you inward or something, and you've come out, and not in a way where it's having to share with like a fellow human. It can be very, I don't know, I mean, introverted in a way. It's accessible to everyone, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, especially here in Alaska, it's accessible.
Yeah. Go outside.
Yes.
That's such a key. Like I go back to that. Go outside. It always works. You're never going to feel worse. That's right. And I think it's always like, it's always a tick better or different, right? And when you're not feeling the best, you just want different, even a different, not that great. It's nice.
Exactly.
And then you come back
exactly.
And you leave that thing. Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well, part two.
Okay. Yes. So we left off in the back of my car at Devil's Pass. Rising early, I picked up my friend and headed to the trailhead. The plan was for her to run out 7 miles to Trout Lake with me, then return and drive my car from Cooper Landing to Hope while I continued on solo. The kicker, it was pouring rain, about 45 to 50 degrees, and the visibility was non-existent, and the trail was a river of mud. Determined, I refused to consider that I wouldn't complete the run. And after a painful ankle twist and face plant into a deep puddle at mile 5, I dug in even deeper. I saw the run as catharsis. Approaching my 32nd birthday the next weekend, I had just survived the most challenging year of my life thus far. I was exhausted throughout the months as I continued to rebuild my life, begrudgingly at times, enthusiastic at other moments. I still battled internally with the heavy trauma of the last year and the growing integration of the old me and the new me. When my friend turned around at mile 7, I gazed ahead at a swampy trail towards Juneau Lake 9 miles in, wondering just how messed up I must be to contemplate carrying on. What can you do but keep running? Just as in life, sometimes we don't get to make decisions to leave our situation or headspace. We are stuck in the muck, quite literally during my trail run, and the only way out is through. Author Cheryl Strayed writes, "Acceptance is a small, quiet room." Acceptance can also be a long trail in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness with cold rain piercing your face and your legs growing heavier by the minute. But again, do you stop? No, because that is frankly not an option. I was 10 to 15 miles from the nearest road, dangerously cold and soaking wet, and there was no guarantee of a pickup if I attempted to hitchhike to Hope. Depression involves navigating through difficult emotional landscapes. Running Resurrection Pass involves navigating through difficult natural landscapes. I had never been on the segment of the trail from Devil's Pass to Hope, and so when I hit the halfway point, half frozen, the uncertainty of the rest of the trail felt formidable. In my life, this is where my anxiety surfaces, a fear of the unknown future, trying to cope with things yet to occur. But, as in running, in life you don't get to stop the clock. You just keep moving forward as gracefully as possible. After mile 10, navigating around puddles ceased to matter. I eventually became drenched enough to stride straight into the deepest ones. I'd part the cow parsnips towering over me and slip and slide down the river that was once a trail. Amidst this, unexpected moments of serenity would surface. While fog and heavy clouds engulfed the mountains with somber undersides, the burst of a vibrant primrose fireweed would catch my eye as I slid past. Or the abundance of mushrooms adorning the mossy banks of the trail descending into Hope. Or a shared grimace with a fellow trail user, acknowledging the imperfect conditions and our shared determination to be out there. These small interactions connected me with the life around me. Similar to the new friendships that I'd formed over the last year, these fellow hikers and runners witnessed a transformed version of me, a person who carries grief, someone who continues forward into the unknown and simultaneously misses the blissful ignorance of my younger self. It is the shared human experience of yearning for belonging and safety, intertwined with a profound desire for the untamed, even fierce, wilderness that envelops us. The setting mirrored my inner landscape this year. Instances of immense and almost unbelievable beauty contrasted sharply with periods of affliction or grief, which at best felt uncontrolled and at worst resembled a tumultuous overthrow of my mental well-being. The trail passes from the 2019 Swan Lake Burn to the beautiful banks of Juneau Lake, up to the alpine of Devil's Pass with its picturesque Forest Service log cabin, and through the corridor of the Alaskan tundra to the midpoint. Descending down towards Hope, evergreen forests quickly usher in a steep canyon on the left side of the trail. The sound of rushing waterfalls arises until the trail reaches a series of creek canyons that pop up and down from a mossy evergreen forest to creek beds full of overgrowth. On my run, with each passing mile moving through the varying landscapes, fatigue started to envelop my mind. Much like a state of meditation, thoughts flowed in and out as I lacked the strength to hold onto any one of them for an extended period of time. The reverberating plea from my body was a tired, "Can we stop soon?" To which my mind replied, "Not until the trail ends." Fascinating, the absence of autonomy in shaping my future has played a pivotal role in my experience of depression and grief. Emerging from this is a sense of despair, as if the vibrancy of life will never return. My rose-colored glasses have been shattered. Resurrection Pass illuminated this concept to me, though with an added metaphorical observation. While today might be draped in shadows and rain, tomorrow or the upcoming weeks or months could unveil a path adorned with plentiful blueberries and scarlet fireweed. Finally, I arrived at the flowing banks of Resurrection Creek, a river big enough to signal the terminus of the trail. Strangely, I found myself not wanting the experience to end. I knew that upon arriving at the parking lot in Hope, I would have to disconnect from this absent state of mind and re-enter my life. The minute I would stop, the overwhelming exhaustion would overtake my body, and I'd return alone to my house-sitting place in Anchorage without reverie. No one to celebrate my intense experience with. A dual struggle arose. Every step I took was a bitter step closer to the end, yet my body ached to cease moving. Eventually, without much fanfare, I crossed the bridge to the parking lot, soaking wet and mud-covered, with 38 more miles in my legs. Trails like Resurrection Pass give us the opportunity to explore our limits, discovering places where solitude offers us the perspective of personal growth. While not everyone crossing the trail will complete it in a single day, each will unearth something unknown. Whether that is building connections with fellow travelers, realizing the confidence to go into the backcountry alone, or simply enjoying a piece of Alaska steeped in history, from the stewardship of the Dena'ina people to the miners of the early 1900s to the countless visitors today. The importance of these natural spaces cannot be understated. This narrative of Resurrection Pass, while personal, resonates universally. It's a reminder that life's journey is not defined by the destination, but by the steps taken along the way. Just as the trail draws us closer to nature, it also reconnects us with ourselves. Resurrection Pass illuminated the symbiotic relationship between the paths I tread and the stories I script. In every stride along the trail, I found a reflection of life's journey, a reminder that we are not only observers of our surroundings, but active participants in our own narratives, even when that participation feels futile. As we explore the world, we simultaneously delve into the depths of ourselves, realizing that every step forward is an act of resilience and self-discovery. It's a reminder that amidst life's uncertainties, the trail remains steadfast, offering a space for introspection, growth, and connection. As for my personal story, the Res Pass Trail reinforced the idea that life is always a journey into the unknown filled with both darkness and light. It is my choice to wake up each morning and choose self-compassion and patience to allow the path to unfold gracefully. As I move through this difficult season of my life, simultaneously an abundance of opportunity surrounds me. With each passing day, I create more community in Alaska. From the regular students at my evening yoga classes to my Mountain View Boys and Girls Club kids who each week give me the healing gift of laughter, to new and old friends of all ages and backgrounds who share their own stories of deep hurt and continued resilience, my path shines with light. Running Resurrection Pass didn't heal me, nor did 3 months of solo travel in South America, or taking psychedelics with shamans, or driving across the West lost and alone. Regardless of how I feel about it, last year's events will shape my life forever. Similar to the natural world, the best we can do is move through whatever weather comes our way with the people, passions, and places that hold us through it all. Resurrection Pass is now one of those places for me. My gratitude extends to the Dena'ina people who stewarded this land and to all those who have preserved this trail's essence. Resurrection Pass isn't just a physical passage. It's where the footprints of countless adventurers intersect, leaving an imprint not only in the mud, but also on the hearts of those who journey. Trails like these are both teachers and healers, guiding us towards embracing life's vast, intricate tapestry.
Rosie Frankowski, everybody, reading her piece on Res Pass here on Seward Sound Words on 91.7 KWH FM Seward and on YouTube on our at Sacktown channel. Rosie, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So good. This piece just has staying power. Like, I'm finding just new things, and that wisdom I was talking about. Nice line there toward the end. The best we can do is move through whatever weather comes our way with the people, passions, and place that hold us through it all. And almost like Res Peace kind of like certified that for you in a way. It seems like some of these lines, you got from this Res Pass experience or other trail experiences, but you got them. It's very like there's a confidence, or there's just like, I got this now. I don't know if it's confidence, but just like, piece of you.
Yeah, like an understanding. Well, I think, and definitely, everybody, I guess, gains their wisdom or knowledge through different ways. But not only this run, but almost all the runs of the last year, and frankly, like maybe all the experiences on trails leading up to the last year too.
Yeah,
I feel like have helped bring that, I guess, some of that wisdom into myself. And maybe it's even just because those are the moments in my life where I was by myself, like forced. When you go, this took me 7 hours to run Res Pass. So
sometimes
7 hours alone in what was honestly the worst weather I could have ever imagined. Right. And it just like, you're forced to, like, what are you going to do? You're going to be internally trying to understand and comprehend why you're even out there. Yeah. And then that almost evolves to like, okay, I'm out here in this absolute miserable weather, but so is this mountain, and so is this plant. And like, I don't know, there's like an interconnectedness that then kind of comes out of it, especially when you get tired at like, I was tired at like hour 2. So the last 5 hours is going in my head.
Yeah, you didn't want it to end, which I think is such a cool moment to this piece. There's surprise. this piece has so much variety. I think that's why it's such an interesting read. And like, you really like know how to tell a story. Like the reader like is right there. I know, I'm the reader there. Like, but that detail was so cool because, we're not expecting that. But then we're like, what? This does fit, with everything she's going through. She's going to have to go back to her house here. So with no one to celebrate with, that was such a great moment. Of the piece.
And I think like that part even, that was a very true feeling, which, I almost feel like I've had that feeling, even like writing this piece, actually. It was interesting. I wrote this all in one go.
Cool.
And then we worked on editing and whatnot. And that was like, but
that's a good one go.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I lost track of time.
Right.
I was sitting in this like screen and porch and just
lost
writing. Yeah. And then, as you're getting towards the end, because you obviously sense I'm reaching the end of what this is, it was like, again, the same feeling of having to almost come back out. And I think that is actually one reason why writing has been a way of processing, and something that even previously to what has happened in my life now has been something that was in my life earlier, because it has that same sense that you can just get pulled completely into something and then be able to come back out with an additional knowledge, with an additional way of thinking through something.
For sure. Yeah. That distraction, that's such a plus. That's, part of why I like to write, or like always want a project. Why I chose a very long Seward novel to write. Like, all right, I'm going to be good for years.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So I get that. That's a cool feeling. Yeah, you don't want it to end like these projects. I picture like a kid just building something with Legos forever. So it's never gonna, then you break it down and change
house.
it. Yeah. Well, that's what's nice about writing. Like we reworked this thing. I'm feeling very final and like, we published it. But this you might add to this. You might switch it up. Like a piece can stay alive. I'm sure as like you're painting. You can bring that in. Like that's kind of a nice feeling. Or maybe you're gonna write a series of trails, or who knows?
Well, like I think it totally. And it's almost like maybe, yes, the writing is published, but it's just like another step in the whole thing. Because now I think one thing I've noticed in the last, week, 2 weeks since this, I guess, was published.
Yeah.
Is that connection and communication with other people about the piece, and
Yeah.
how that almost adds richness into it for me as the writer. And then like continuing, it's almost the conversation is existing in connection with this published writing that's on paper, or I guess on the internet. But it doesn't die. It's like alive. It's almost like you're giving birth to something that can go and be bigger than yourself, because ultimately the main reason why I ended up sharing this piece, or even like contemplated sharing it, because it is, as you probably realize, pretty personal.
For sure.
And it is because I really think that there's people who have experienced or are experiencing or will. I mean, everybody will experience a hard time in their life, but maybe one that is really relatable to what I've been describing. And they can see that, one, they're not alone in it.
Yep.
Two, maybe they'll consider writing about something, or they'll consider going out on a trail and being able to feel something other than the heavy darkness that is enveloping all of their days, you know? And so I went back and forth with, if I was, before I knew you, before we had gotten in touch, and I had even sent this into Rachel, like, I actually was not sure if I wanted to go there, because I also, like, through some of my background, have lived some of my life publicly and not been maybe like the most honest with myself, to be honest with the other people, whether it's an interview, whether it's talking to youth about cross-country skiing. And not that I was being inauthentic, because I just didn't even realize internally what was maybe my truth at that point. But
I hear you,
it's like, I guess one of the things that I've learned in the last year is I don't want to live that way. At least for me, that's like a big thing, is that being able to slow down and know what my truth is. And so when I did write this, like, I didn't immediately send it in to Rachel at KMTA. Like, I took some time, because I was like, okay, first of all, is this really what I'm feeling inside? And yes. And then two, like, do I want to share this? And am I ready for it being out in the world? But since I have put it out in the world, that's when I've really realized, like, it's come full circle. Like, it's not just my experience, it's everybody's experience in some way. So.
Well, I mean, I hear that all the way. It's my experience in some ways. Like, I definitely connect to it, with the depression and going to nature to just feel better. And, this nature and life, you do like such a nice play back and forth, like, as in life, like here at the part of this trail, this is in life, this is where my anxiety kicks in. Such a connection there. We all, I mean, I don't want to be generalized like that, but people go through stuff. You never know what people are going through. And I think you're going to get more and more feedback. What I'm hearing is you're getting feedback, and it's like, hey, probably thank you for writing that. Like, I really felt that. And, that's what art can do. And this is art, absolutely. Like, and this is something that you wrote in one go, and then you were able to sit back and kind of like do the art thing with it more. Like, you did that first art part of it, which is the big part, writing it. But now the thinking of it, I'm sure, like, when you did other hikes, like, all right, do I want to go with that? Was that really me? I like that. Like, you weren't being honest, like, because that is a writing thing. Like, it's hard, you're trying to be honest, but with the ski thing, I get that, because there's a lot of audience there, and you got to be careful. You got to, but to learn how to, get better at honesty, like, I think that is a skill, which is, we all have our best intentions, but it's like, so you're able to sit back with it and kind of spend more art time with it, and then retool it, and then kind of get more perspective, like looking at a few different ways, like, what? You tell me this is wrong, but like, this is me. And it's going to do a lot of good to share it. And I'm ready to, and I'm so thankful that you did. And I think it was a really strong move. And I think it's going to help lots of readers. And you're not going to hear from, but it's helping people. I mean, it helped me.
Well, thank you. Good. I really like what you said about writing also being art, because I think that has been at least like leaning into writing and into a lot of different creative pursuits, I guess, over the last, I almost feel like, at least, and I'm not necessarily that old, but sometimes in my head, I think I'm older than I am based on my peers around me. I ended up being with a lot of kids younger than me who are in their 20s when I was ski racing. So it's like, I'm the old one.
I make you feel that way.
But I did a lot of academic stuff out of college. I did graduate school, like boom, boom, boom. And then athletics was like the focus. And inevitably in life, we have periods of our lives that take these focuses, whether it's like you're going to have a kid and for 18 years, that's your main focus. And then obviously still later, but that took up a lot of space. And now that some of that space has lessened because I'm not training full time anymore,
right,
and trying to work and do everything else.
Right.
Time and space for these creative pursuits have come up. And I almost have found they're a way to explore some of that more like inner honesty. A lot of times, and this also, you know, I'm like processing and figuring this all out while I go through this year, with like skiing and stepping away from a really high level athletics. Like you're almost like not listening to your body in skiing. I mean, you are, or like any high level athlete, because, or running, whatever. Because your body's telling you it hurts, and like hurts a lot, and that you're tired. And like sometimes you have to perform. Like if you have races that weekend and you are over in Europe, it doesn't matter how your body feels. Like you have to go out there and try your best and at some level perform, whether that means actually a good performance or just doing it. You don't get to say no or say, oh yeah, I'm going to listen to you, body. And so I trained myself so well into not listening. And in writing or in watercoloring, or just even, I don't know, kind of being more in touch with, I mean, frankly, I've been reading like No Tomorrow in the last year, and that's similar where I feel like I'm interacting with these authors that I don't know.
Writing, I love to say.
Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, I consider some of them my friends in my head.
Closer than,
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we've never met. We're never going to meet.
That's the best relationship.
It is. It really is. It's all take no. Anyway, but
I mean, it's up there. You know, it's like when you're line by line with somebody, like they got you. It's like, I know what I'm doing the rest of the day. You know? Literally. And or you save it, you know, because
it's
so
like,
good.
I literally didn't sleep for a long time last year, and it almost was like, well, now I have more time to read at least. That's the silver lining. But yeah, I think that using these creative and artistic pursuits to dive deeper have given me that place, because I can't, now I'm starting to find it more, but I couldn't, at least in the beginning, stepping away from skiing. And like I mentioned in this piece, I actually quit skiing in February of 2020, and we were on a trip to go to South America. We were in Mexico when the pandemic hit, and had sold our cars, moved out of our house, did all the things to be these vagabonds for a year, and then had to come back to Anchorage. And it was like the world is in chaos, and I internally was already struggling with really bad anxiety without getting help for it. And then dived into the COVID years, and it got worse. And then on top of that, like, it was like, okay, well, skiing's something I know. So I just went right back into skiing. But I never let that space and chance for something else come, like, to arise. And so it got just kind of put under all the layers more and more. And this year has been, I mean, the world blew up, right? So the layers are all exposed, but like, that doesn't mean that I have an easy way to figure them out. And writing's been one of those ways too. I mean, I've filled up like a lot of journals in the last year. That stuff is not publishable. It is like also just like not full sentences, but you know, even like that was one of the main things that luckily I started doing in 2020. So I already had a journal practice, but I mean, when you're driving around the West and you have no service and you're sleeping in your car, like, what are you going to do? You're going to write.
Journal,
like you're
going
to, journal and read and
look
often,
outside.
Look outside, often by candlelight, because I was someone who always wasn't charging anything. So like I bought a bunch of candles and would light them in the back of my car. It was just like, if anyone saw me.
Take it back to what's worked for eternity.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, time, you know, that's what art needs. That's what you need. And the journaling, I do want to talk about that, because I think it's a great way to get to, like, you know, new writing and just to, I heard a great line about journaling recently. Like, journaling is not for the public. It's just you're the audience. It's just for you. You know, that's when you write, like, you may want to share something with someone, but when you write, you're writing for an audience of you. That's it. That's how you get like and that's how you get reps. And that's why when you sit down to write about Res Pass, it's one go, and it's really nice writing because you've trained. You know, I'm going to make this connection now, because writing, you know, there is training that just goes on and on and on. There is no event. Like, I guess this could be like a little race or event, like you want to publish this. There was no deadline, but like an ending, right? To your Res Pass piece. but the training goes on and on and on, like it's not
Yes.
like this Olympics or this race. It's like,
Yeah, it never
it's
ends.
so cumulative. And the more wisdom you get, the more reading you do, the more stuff you write, the more conversations you have.
Yes.
That's such a comforting thing to me. And like pressure's off. Like I know I'm going to write forever as long as I live and keep building, maybe at some point, hopefully, when I'm real old, it's like it'll fall off a little, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, like a lot of the writers I talk with and work with are seniors who have great stories and have written a lot. And it's like,
I mean, I totally agree. And I think journaling too is I taught some writing courses adjunct at APU. So I did have some background in, or have some, I should say, in just like more, it was writing 101. So very basic level, but
teaching writing,
teaching writing. And that actually gives you a whole another perspective on it.
Yeah.
But the journaling stuff is, I mean, it's funny. I actually had to catch myself, or I like to catch myself. Anyone can do their journaling the way they want, where I'll be like, honestly, it's like, why am I writing honestly in my journal? This is a journal.
Right.
Like no
take it to another level here.
Yeah, it's like I'm talking to a book or
cross out.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've had to really and it's funny, even in the way I address people, I'll write like my mom, and it's like, no, mom.
Right.
I call her mom. She's not she is my mom, but
yeah.
And so that has been a process. But I agree with you that, I mean, at some point I hope to go back and read a lot of the stuff I've written in journals over the last year, because I think some of it has nuggets of gold. But
totally, yeah.
But it is definitely, it was those thoughts and the stuff that I had worked out to actually put into this piece had been worked out in probably months and months of journaling. And even like some of the images in this, I mean, when I was in New Mexico, I was writing a lot. I was living alone over the whole month of December, the holidays in New Mexico. So I didn't know anybody, which was good and bad, right?
Yeah.
But I would write about these very specific images of when I would go running often in the mornings, and it was sunrise over like a winter desert scene. And so those images are burned into my head, both visually and through writing, because I was already describing them.
Yeah.
And so I do agree with you that it is like the small steps of training, and also, but training in a way that's like very enjoyable.
Totally,
I don't hold myself to like, I have to journal every single day.
Yeah.
I end up doing it because I like it.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's just a practice that is for enjoyment's sake. And then it brings all these other great elements.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, just, the writing in your journal, you may never look at it again. Just that half hour you spent doing it, I feel better. Like going outside maybe, right? Or I like to say like yoga, which I don't really do, but I've tried it. It does feel good. And I might do more. Or like when I take some time to like breathe, like just doing that felt good. It's not because I'm trying to publish that breath, or like that piece. It's just, I'm better now, and then you get all these other things. There's potential. You're sitting on that, and that feels good. Like I got that. Like I just made some notes yesterday. Made my day. Like got up early is the key to me.
Oh yeah,
I'm still like making that transition, because
well, darker, so.
But yeah, I did it, and it was like, ooh, it's nice to like get back into that. Like,
well, and I actually am in this like mini course right now on like nervous system regulation stuff,
cool,
and a lot of it is about, which is a unique idea that I think I have picked up on without being able to put it into words, but about how stuff arises out of your body and then your mind like tells it, as opposed to if you're trying to like regulate your nervous system with your head down instead of like body up, it doesn't work. And that actually is an interesting thing. Like I even feel like, talking about going out on a trail or, doing yoga, which obviously I teach yoga, so that's a common thing in my life, but I'll go into these things, like even when I'm teaching, I'll have a really bad day, like an emotional bad day. I've been in the parking lot of the yoga studio sobbing on the phone to my mom, and then be like, okay, time to pull it together, get inside and have to teach. And like a part of what I believe in yoga is I'm providing a space for like other people to explore. Like it's not me putting my emotions on them. So I have to like somehow pull that in, and I'll get into that space. I'll start teaching. Sometimes I'll be a little scattered at first because I'm still like not really centered or anything. But by the end of the class, because of the environment I've been in and the energies I've been around, now all of a sudden my body's calm. So now my head's calm. And like, whereas in the car crying, it was the opposite. My head was not calm, so I was making my body all uncalm. And so that's been an interesting thing to think about, even like with writing, because I feel like the ability to tell the stories of what our body is telling us through our mind, because language is inevitably a mind thing, like that has been a really big way of processing and using writing to process for me.
I mean, that's a great subject to write about. I mean, that's been on my mind a little bit. It's just like body, I think heart too is there, right?
Yeah.
I know there's more, but they're so different, you know, and that's really neat to just get away from the thoughts. All right, if I just go into the studio, you know, with your mom, there's head stuff going on there because you're talking, you're working out the thoughts, but then you go into the studio and just try to take the mind out of it, go to the practice, people around you, everybody's feeling good. You could sense that body improves, head just kind of hopefully leaves for a little bit.
Exactly.
And then now the thoughts are going to clear up. And,
exactly.
And that's with running. You know, I'll say running. I know it's skiing now, but like you maybe like trail run.
I trail run.
Running, skiing.
I trail run a lot more than I ski nowadays.
So running, because that's mine too. I mean, I do cross country ski, and it's similar. You know, when we say trails. Like, But that, you know, is just like you might be kind of not thinking straight. It's like go on a run, and like I love the way I think on a run. You know, like let's talk about like writing while running, even like getting ideas for stuff for the journal for a piece while running. You know, maybe it's like just could be a line, could be anything, just like this is where I want to be. Like, how nice is that? Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I mean, honestly, this is kind of a weird thing. I work for a company that is currently doing AI stuff to do transcripts.
Well, we talk about AI on the show.
Well, it's way beyond my understanding of. I'm not a techie person, if you can tell.
I like criticizing.
But sometimes I wish there was like a transcript of my head during a run, because I am floating. The best runs, I should say, this isn't every run or hike, is where you're floating in and out of like ideas, and you lose sense of where you are, but you're also so present where you are. And I do agree with you that some of the like, I'll have these moments, and I actually used to do this in the fall. I would stop and I'd pull up my phone and do a voice recording of something I was thinking about. But then like
save it.
Yeah, but then when you're in like the best of those ideas, your phone's not even a thought, which is great. But
you don't even want to interrupt the head stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to interrupt
save it,
but
it's just like, oh, we're still going.
Exactly, and then I'll get like back to the trailhead. I'm like, oh, I don't even. I mean, it maybe will pop again in a month, like pop up in my head, but it's like I don't even remember any of that now. But I completely agree about that kind of space of. I think this is what people say. What is like a meditative state, and I think is like I'm no Zen master, but where like thoughts are just coming in and out, but you're not, like you said, you're not attaching to any of them. They're just flowing. And it feels so, I mean, it's so calming, I guess, but also just, it feels like a great way to be existing in that moment, because it's like, you can recognize things. Like, I mean, today even there was amazing mushrooms on the Primrose Trail.
Yeah.
Like the Anamitas here are huge.
Yeah, it's a good year, yeah.
Crazy. And I'm pretty into mushrooming, so I'm like overturning anything that could potentially be a bully to bring home. But like I'm sensing that, but then I'm also seeing the meadow, and something is triggering some kind of thing there where I'm thinking like, oh, this looks like the Tetons little. Oh, there's snow there. Yeah. And it's just so circular and not like becoming bogged down in any of those thoughts or honestly any like emotions. And that is such a relief.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so nice that we have that. It's like always. Yeah.
And that's like one thing through all the traveling I've done, which I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm the world traveler or anything, but like we are so lucky to have fresh air, like clean air, access to green space almost anywhere. Like a lot of the work I do in Mountain View is trying to get kids connected. Well, one, teach them cross country skiing, which they end up not being able to move that far when you're learning how to ski. So we don't go that far. But even like a lot of the bike stuff we do in the summer is connecting to these green spaces, because in Anchorage, and I mean, you guys in Seward, it's even above and beyond. I mean, if I could live here, it'd be incredible. But we have access to green space everywhere, or even just like sit by the ocean or sit by a river. And that's not how all the world is.
Yeah, you're saying we Alaskans.
Yeah, we Alaskans. Yeah. And it's like not, we're really, really lucky.
And it's good to think of that every day. You know, like when you start feeling down, well, you know what? Like I do just look up and just like take it back to basics. Be like, don't, no excuse for feeling like just go into it too. Yes. You could look at it and draw from it and go into it and watch how it changes. I like how you said this kind of looks like the Tetons. I definitely do that a lot too and derive a lot of joy from like, oh, this is kind of like Bar Harbor. You know, I have these spots where like something surprised me. It's like maybe not even, but just like the angle of the sun or a smell, just something that you grab. And I just, even when I'm in that flow, I agree. Like you kind of don't want to notice it because you just want to stay in it. But I like thinking like I can get there.
Yes.
You know, like the reminder of even like when I check in with my body, like a knee thing, whatever. It's like, all right, let's go on around, let's see how we're doing. You know, it's like, all right, I think I'm okay. You know, it's like
totally.
like I always think like, oh, this is so good. It's like, well, I could do it again. Like while I'm in it or like exiting it, I'm kind of looking forward to the next time. Just the ability.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's even. We've had snow on the mountains around here, and
my favorite look. I love it.
Oh. I completely fall this time of year. It's just I missed this time of year last year because it was in the West, which was beautiful. But there's a reason I was like, I'm not missing blueberries this year. I picked a crazy amount of blueberries this year.
Congratulations.
I plan on making a lot of blueberry
jam. Yeah.
But had your pass. Okay. But then kind of all over. Yeah. Did you guys? I heard that there wasn't great ones.
Tough year.
Okay. Yeah. Well. I come down again. Yeah, the mushrooms, there's still good mushrooms out on these trails. Yeah. But just, I didn't want to miss mushrooms, blueberries, and then just the fall colors and the snow on the mountains. Yeah. And it's such there's a couple things, but one thing about Alaska that it's just, even that Kenai Mountains area and that, I went dip netting on the Kenai, at Kenai River. So I got enough food to eat salmon, which, as somebody who doesn't cook for themselves very well, it's very helpful to have stuff that's healthy and real. Yeah, some protein, Yeah, and then blueberries, and I got a fair amount of mushrooms, and just being able to collect these things and live this lifestyle that's so seasonally, it follows the seasons. That doesn't happen in many places.
No, right, I do.
We're really lucky to have that.
Yeah, and connect to, natives and early people. Like this is going back to reading by candlelight and writing, doing the classic things that we could trust as the world moves forward. I'm not going to get carried away with this, but into AI and more tech and stuff like these original things are the best, because you're connecting with what people have always done. Yes. And the seasonal thing. With the termination dust, I'm so funny with it. Like the first one, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best. Yeah. And then I want it to melt and I want to get as many termination dust as I can. We're looking good here, totally. Rather just snow drift. We always root for snow. I'd be happy with that, But I just want it. We're getting a few regions.
Yes. Today is breathtaking.
Yeah, we're in a zone right here, and we're in a zone here, which is awesome here on Seward Soundwords on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward, and on our YouTube channel at Sacktown Talk. Rosie Frankowski is here. This is just an awesome conversation derived from her piece on Res Pass about what nature can give us and the trail, and her experience of running Res Pass in one day, and kind of just a feeling to I'm doing this, and some signals and going for it and not wanting it to end. And if you're just hopping in, you can go back and hear her read the piece. You could also read the whole piece on the KMTA website as part of the new Trail Mix Journal project. We have three up right now. Fourth one's coming real soon. So Rosie, we're still going here, but I want to thank you for kind of trailblazing there. I think, these early ones, it's really set a nice tone of people can read and be like, yeah, I could write something like that, or I have an idea kind of off that, or, wow, she really shared a lot. We can do that. If I want to, okay, Rosie, so, but I really, with the Trail Mix Journal, it can be so many things. But I really love what you did with it. I do want to ask, so did the Trail Mix Journal, did you know that the project was happening and then you wrote about Res Pass? And any guest can always pass on any questions.
Yeah, no. It was actually, I didn't know Trail Mix Journal existed, but it was kind of funny. So I subscribed to a bunch of newsletters Acreage Library, KMTA, just random. I worked in the nonprofit world for a long time, and I just feel that's how you find out things about cool things. Yeah. So I had been on their newsletter, and it said something we're looking for guest submissions. Yeah. And I had messaged, replied to it or applied or something, but not with a piece, just saying I'd be interested, before I went to South America. Okay. And or maybe even when I was in South America, to be honest. But I didn't hear back for a really long time, and I was like, oh.
That's pre-Trail Mix Journal, because they publish little stories too. There's a precedent there.
Yeah, and so then I was kind of to be honest, oh well, probably we're nope, writing's not very good. But then anyway, I got a message.
But here we are now.
Well, I got a message from Rachel. I think it was when I had returned to Alaska, so it was early July, and it had just been okay. Oh, I missed your email, whatever. We'd love to have you, and that's when I was like, oh, okay. And then of course the thought was, I actually did not intend to write about Res Pass because I didn't intend to run Res Pass. Oh, okay. I was just thinking of something Girdwood's the love of my heart, and I was okay, maybe I'll write about something Girdwood. And I didn't anticipate writing about even anything this remotely like personal, I
Yeah,
guess. And so I was kind of like, oh, I'll think about it. I'll let you know. And then this whole thing happened where I ran Res Pass. And afterwards, you know, the week after, I was like, oh, I could write about that.
Yeah.
And partly I think I wanted to write about it for myself.
Right.
And then it was like I said, I'll write it and I'll see if I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
And then I wrote it. And like I said, I took a couple days, about a week, to be like, am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And I actually talked to my sister about it. And she, bless her heart, she was like, I don't know if you should do this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, my reaction to her saying that was like, oh no, I am gonna do it, which that fits a lot with like my style I make decisions in, where it's like,
that's great.
I kind of classic.
Okay, you don't want me to do it? Right.
Yeah, then I'm like, I'm okay, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. So, but yeah, I didn't know about the trail mix journal, and then Rachel actually was like, oh, this would be great for this new project we did.
Sweet.
And I went back and read the Devil's Pass poem. I can't remember the authors.
Emily Mailman.
Yeah, and then the first one,
Mark Swanson.
Yeah, and
Unidentified Trail.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. That was a very unique way of doing that. And it was funny because Emily's the poem, when I was reading, I was like, oh gosh, like you said, I can relate to so many parts of this. The imagery she was using is like I was there because I've been on that trail enough to be like, oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, a couple weeks before, or not even 1 week before I ran Res Pass, I ran Devil's Pass with the friend who ended up circling my car. And so it was so easy to relate to that. And I think it's an awesome project.
I'm excited.
It's
Thank
really
you.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great to have you here in the early going. And, you know, writers, you know, trail users can, you know, write about more trails. We're going to get, you know, several people. But then, you know, when anyone gets to touch me, like, I'm going to be like, yeah, let's do it. You know? So you can even be, those are in the works. But I think we're going to really be getting steady with those publications. It's going to be a really big, you know, kind of just regular journal to read new stuff. Emily, she has a nice connection actually. As I think of that piece, it's kind of cool. Devils and Res Pass going back to back because they are kind of grouped together a little bit. You know, I think like the Soggy Bottom race, they're near each other. Yeah. But like she has this theme of like leaving it when you go on the trail, you leave it behind. Like, you know, we're not like, I forget the line exactly. We're not doctors and students and this. We're just on the trail.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
And you got the solo trail. Her is kind of group thing. It is different, you know. Of course, like being on the trail with friends is so fun, and like those trail conversations, right, where they get to. Yeah. But like the alone thing, like which I've been doing a little more, just kind of with my schedule, like it is rich. Like it
gives you the space to, because a lot of people in our lives, like these days, I mean, I think this past year has been the most time I've ever spent alone in my whole life. I mean, I have like a sister, and we shared a room growing up, so it was just, you know, not
right.
But and then had roommates forever, and
teammates,
and it always presented the space. I did train a fair amount alone before, when I was skiing, but now I've like been living alone and driving around, you know, all the things. Yeah. But in the busy lives, we don't have a lot of that space to be inside our own heads alone, truly, with like an extended amount of time, so that we can calm down and then enter the space. Because I feel like it's like, okay, take 15 minutes, like. Really, 15 minutes, that's not going to give you, in my opinion, the time. And like, but as I said, it's a privilege to have that time. I mean, I'm very aware that most people in my situation, if their life kind of fell apart like this, they can't just fly lower 48, buy a car and go just leave their lives. Like that is a huge privilege. But one benefit of having that privilege was that I have had this chance to, and even now, I mean, as we know, I'm house sitting. Like, I don't have everything figured out, but like to have that time and space to be diving into some of these things and really, I mean, trail running, anything outdoors, all of that like offers us that time if you go do it alone.
And a way to do it, you know, like how do you be alone? You know, I think writing, that's a way I think of being alone, but I'm kind of like on the piece, you know, but I do get somewhere as far as like that, you know, what you're talking about sounds like extensive amount of times to get into this solo, like who am I? You know, what am I? What do I want? What's going on? You know, reflect and bring it all together. And the trail is like, okay, like rather than just like staring at a wall and thinking like how I do it, well, I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to run Lost Lake, you know, and then it's going to kind of happen outside. Just like, that's the only thing you need to think. You're getting so many good things from that anyways, like just fresh air and blueberry snacks. And I really like the moment when you run into the fellow trail user out there in the rain. That's just like a nice kind of, because it's such a solo kind of piece. And then like, oh, hey, this is,
which,
you know, that look.
Literally was the exact look.
What are you doing out here?
This person was in like complete rain pants. I mean, I was jealous of their setup. They were backpacking. It seemed like they had a backpack, and they just looked miserable.
Yeah, right.
But
Do
then
I look like this too?
yeah. Well, and then I like saw I did take the photo. I think there's some photos along with the piece online, but
yeah.
I like when I took those, it was like take the phone out, take a photo, put it back, and start running. Like because I was so cold.
Right.
So when I looked at them later, I was like, oh my god, I look terrible.
They're real.
Like, yeah. I mean, I was so.
That's what someone looks like when they're, near.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Like that's a safe kind of thing. Like you have, you like you said, you can't turn back. You just go, and like you have the training, even though you're not like up to speed on your training. Like I think just having gotten through those type of days in the past, you can be like, well.
And I did have in my backpack pants and more clothes, but it was kind of the thing where it's either you're going to stop, put everything on, and then slow down, or you're just going to make it through.
Right.
But it was, I mean,
intense.
It was intense. And I will say that, like, I mentioned this in the piece, there's these things that I've done in the last year where afterwards I have to kind of check myself and be like,
do that again.
Was that the smartest?
Yeah.
And it might have not been with that weather, but like also that's life too, right? Like we make decisions that maybe aren't the smartest at that moment, or the weather's not going to cooperate and we're just going to do it and be ready to deal with the consequences. But
go through.
Yeah.
The fact that you stop and evaluate, I think that's a good sign. I think some people maybe don't, like, okay, what do I do? Should I have, some people just like.
Yeah, totally. Creating that space. This is a Viktor Frankl idea, stimulus and response, the bigger space, maybe a little more space is what I'm working on.
Yeah.
But.
So I want to talk more about like what you're working on with writing or your ideas for, like, so I've read, nonfiction by you, like in your journal, which is nonfiction, but like, what are your plans or what are you working on with writing now?
Yeah.
Like, do you like to write I think you mentioned poetry.
Yeah. I've written.
Give us a little bit on that.
Totally. I've written some, I have not published any of this. Right. In the past I wrote a series of like, I don't know, very informational articles about skiing.
Okay. Yeah.
And almost even a little bit like, I don't know if we want to call it like blog, but for a skiing website, we're just explaining. I have kind of an untraditional start to my skiing career, so I was remarking on that a lot.
Cool.
But I think, at least in my like personal writing right now, I do really enjoy poetry. I love reading poetry. I love Mary Oliver.
Yeah.
I actually love Pablo Neruda.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And and then just other pieces. And actually, like, one of the inspirations of even sharing this piece, actually, at the time that in that week of indecision, I was reading Maggie Smith, who also is a poet and a writer, but she wrote a memoir on her divorce called You Can Make This Place Beautiful. And that's actually like a line from a poem called Good Bones, which was a very popular poem a few years back. But kind of about, it's set up in this really cool way of series of like essays or snippets or untraditional. Like, I definitely don't seem, I'm not interested in fiction or fantasy at this point.
Yeah.
I think like the way writing is serving in my life right now is processing. And so anything that I would be working on is pretty like deeply linked to that. And whether it's processing, the last year, or if it's like honestly going back and like looking at processing is maybe the wrong word, because that implies that it's bad, which I don't mean to say like it's all like processing these negative things that happen. It's also like celebrating, like processing can be celebrating the positive things that happen. So whether it's looking at, friendships, familial relationships. I have like one sister, I'm very close with her. Stuff that's happened in my family life in the last decade that also got backburnered because I was at skiing things all the time. And so just being able to kind of connect more. And one thing I find really interesting, which I haven't really explored this, but I would love to, is, so I spent a lot of my summers growing up in northern Minnesota, right we weren't on the shores of Lake Superior, but if anyone knows Minnesota, it's in the North Shore and it's near Canada. I'm going to say it's similar to Alaska. Doesn't have mountains. So every Alaska is like,
I feel,
what? So it's very remote. My parents live there now. We lived with my grandma, and just, it was like my parents lived in the cities working. And I find there's this huge connection between my childhood down there and kind of the way we were just set free to explore the woods at no oversight whatsoever. And then now the way I approach, I don't know, nature up here in Alaska and exploration. Like I have a ton of friends who are like, you go out and do these things by yourself. Aren't you scared? And it's like,
I grew up doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, there was no grizzly bears. There was black bears, but
I was 6.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this like idea of, well, I got myself out of that situation. I got myself out of, like, and so I would love to explore kind of that kind of linkage more.
That's cool. I like that.
But yeah, so like I said, a lot of it's
Minnesota a little bit, like that ground and those visuals.
And it's been interesting returning back. I spent a month in Minnesota last winter. I spent like a week there after being in South America. I'm actually going back to Minnesota for a month in December of this year. And being able to, so we did have a house in Minneapolis. I went to school there, high school. And that's been an interesting thing to lose where you grew up. The house was sold to someone else. They've changed a lot of things in it.
Yeah.
But then also like my exploring, I think my identity was linked a lot more to Ulman, which is where my parents live.
Yeah.
And knowing now, going back and forth a lot more how it's connected, because again, with skiing, I traveled for so many months of the year, and it was flying to Europe. It was amazing things.
There's no home.
No home.
It's Ulman, the original home.
Yeah. And especially this past year, living in houses all over Anchorage, living in a car, living in the West, living in
variety of homes. We're getting a little more home, but still
but it's still just been really in flux. And if you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have said the number one thing that is hard for me with leaving skiing is that I am really ready for a home. And we were going to actually travel through South America. And so I was having this like, oh my God, I just need a place to center.
Yeah.
And then instead of that centering happening, it like erupted. And now I haven't been centered, but I've been trying to work on where is that center. And it might not be in a location. It might be like in me, but then what are the pieces in me? Is it Ulman? Is it Alaska? Well, it's all of them, but I would love to explore that in writing, because as you can see, it's
that sounds rich.
Jumble.
I like that a lot. That sounds like an awesome project for everything. I think for readers too. I do go there. It's what you want to share, but like I could see a piece where you're switching off locations, in time zones. Where like you're in, exploring the woods,
Ages,
in Minnesota when you're a little kid. Cool voice there. You do something different, and then a couple pages, then you jump to res pass type piece or another trail thing, and there's can be connections. I think that could be a really fun read. And, we know you writing about it is going to be so valuable. But I like that a lot. And that could be a long one.
Yeah,
Which long ones are great. Because you always,
Totally. Like you said, you
stay in it. You don't have to leave.
Yeah, you don't have to leave. We don't have to be counting it down.
Yeah. So good. Really enjoying talking to you.
Thanks.
Here on Seward Sound, where it's 91.7 KIVH FM Seward. So what else do you want to talk about? We
kind of covered a lot. I guess one thing the departing message, if I had one, would be just to like really hopefully inspire people to be willing to not only write, but also share just in a bigger sense, whether that's a conversation with one person, whether it's, writing down in a journal, like sharing what's going on in them, because I do think that I guess like this is going to be an odd way to say this, and I hate sounding like those very cliche things, but like
they work sometimes.
They do. Like we heal in community, and I think that, and healing, I hate using that word in some ways, but like just we move through life in community, and I know that in my past year, it's been so helpful to even just I had many random experiences and conversations with strangers where, whether it was in South America or whether it was in Utah or wherever, where it just was like a human connection was formed. Mm-hmm. And do I stay in touch with these humans? No, like I will probably never see them again.
Right.
But they've imparted this kind of gift to me of knowing that we shared this experience. And I think that whether it's a happy thing, a sad thing, an angry thing, a indifferent thing, like just sharing allows us to just build that connection. And I really believe that is a part of life that even, not to again sound cliche, but like in the age we're in now, sometimes there's a lot of isolation and there's a lot of a lack of like being in person because we're talking to people across the world through technology all the time. But being able to actually dive into that, I think would be helpful. And this piece and sharing it has been, even like coming down here. I came down to Seward to do this radio show. I drove down last night, like got to see a sunset while driving, went on a run this morning. Like there's all these things that come out of sharing. We just don't really know till we do it. So
that's well put. Share. I mean, I kind of want to just end there, but I have like a lot of thoughts from that. That's so well put. And that's something that I've done more. Like I'm late to feedback. I think I said this to you in an email. Like it took me a while to start because I was just like, just keep writing. But like as I've shared, even, you know, let's say you're not like ready to like publish a piece or even like give a person here, look what I just wrote. You could talk about what you're writing. Like I'm writing something, you know, it's kind of about this, just those conversations. Like that's how I work now. Like with, you know, I have a few friends just like bounce ideas off and like, that, you know, they could write and be like, well, yeah, I don't know if people would connect to that. You know, you just get so much right there. But then when you are ready to publish and put something out or hand it off, like the stuff you get back, which you're experiencing now, it like takes the piece to another level, takes you to another level. It helps those people. Like it really is unlimited as far as the effects it can have, you know.
And
it's a good thing.
Totally. And the fear of maybe people criticizing it or, you know, having some kind of feedback that you're worried about. I personally haven't. I think anyone that's going to give negative feedback isn't reading it. Like they maybe read the first paragraph and then they're like, okay, who cares? They're not going to take the time to do it. And if they do, that's a reflection a lot more on them. And if you published or wrote, not even, you know, shared something that you truly have heart and soul in, like it's your heart and soul. Like that's you. Like it doesn't matter what they think. And but like I said, I've had people come out of the woodwork that I haven't heard from in years, and it was completely positive things, and it just gave me this sense of like, oh yeah, that relationship in my life. And kind of it like you said, it adds richness. It just brings all these other elements in.
You wonder, you know, as I'm sure they thought about maybe reaching out to you or you to, you know, but it's like, but it took this, like you going and just like when your heart's in it, like I think with anything in life, like you can, you know, I think that's what it came down to with you with this piece, right? Like
definitely.
And we're all better for it. And well, Rosie, I mean, I'm looking forward to continuing to talk with you, you know, as we go forward, share about our writing and stuff, keep the email going and whatever. But I just want to recognize, you know, this connection here today, meeting you today. And I mean, this was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. And I mean, and editing, helping me clarify some of the parts of this too.
It's fun to act like a writer. You know,
you're my first editor I've ever had.
All right,
so I was very honored.
I really enjoyed working on your piece and just like the back and forth that got going. And I'm really enjoying that with the Trail Mix project. Like I need more editing practice and like what kind of editor am I and what, you know, because these could be personal and they're people's, you know. But
I think you're a good editor.
If a little bit like, hey, totally your call. You know, this is something I'm thinking. But you were really,
I appreciate it. I felt it was fantastic. So
carry that with you, and you know, I'll keep editing your stuff. You know, like sometimes I take a little more time to get back once it's like not for a certain project. But please, I would love to read your writing, and I want to share some of my writing with you. I meant to do that.
I would love to.
That'll be a good next step.
Yes, please. That would be fantastic.
I haven't published it yet. I'm trying to get a few more, but I wrote about Res River Trail, like out Exit Glacier Road, kind of like early when I started the thought of the project. So I'll get that to you. Like today.
I would love to read that. That'd be really cool.
That's how we'll carry on.
Yes, perfect. It sounds great.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic episode of Seward Soundwords. Rosie Frankowski, thank you so much for coming, and have a great time in Seward.
Thanks. Go check out the sunshine.
Thank you all for listening so much and for watching on YouTube on our @Sacktown channel. Subscribe, let people know. We're going to be coming with a lot more programming, which is really exciting, getting a lot of energy from it, and the energy comes from the guests who are willing. So reach out if you want to be on the show, and we're going to keep building. Thank you all so much.